Alright, I want to do some jujitsu tomorrow, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get this video done with today. Alright, so very quickly, frame data, frame traps, and plus frames, and negative frames. Okay, here we go. So I had a student ask me, how does frame data work? And she was a little bit confused on how frame data works, so let me explain it the easiest way. I'm gonna explain it the right way too. Usually I just use math, but I'm gonna do it a little bit different this time. So there's 60 frames per second. So each move comes out in a certain amount of frames per second, right? So for example, I don't know why it already shows Katana's done something. Okay, so let's say I'm Katana and I do a stand 1. Let me turn off the block. Okay. I'm Katana and I do a stand 1. So if you look at the bottom left of the corner, it tells you when the the startup time of the stand 1 and the recovery of the stand 1 and the active frames. You really don't need to worry about active frames and recovery right now. The most important things you need to learn is startup time and how minus it is on block or on hit. So for example, there's no block advantage or hit advantage because I didn't hit anyone, right? But if you look at the startup, 8 frames is how fast it takes for the stand 1 to come out in a second. So for example, Aaron does his stand 1. Oops, let me try that again. If Aaron does his stand 1, it comes out in 8 frames too. Most stand 1s come out in 8 frames, but yeah, so his stand 1 also comes out in 8 frames. It has a little bit less range, but it comes out in 8 frames. Now, every move has a certain amount of startup frames, and obviously, certain moves take longer to come out, right? So, for example, Katana's fan toss is 15 frames, so obviously it's slower than her stand 1. Because how frame data works is, the smaller the frames, the faster the move. So, for example, Katana's down 3 is her fastest move, and it's 7 frames. So it's the fastest move Katana can do on the stage. Now, where it gets complicated, I think, for most people is hit advantage and block advantage. So it's pretty simple, actually. So block advantage is just how minus is it on block. So for example, I just did a stand 1 that comes out in 8 frames, and it's -4 on block. What that means is my next move will come out in 4 frames more than if I had done it without him blocking. So let's just exclude recovery and active for now. Let's just say this, right? This comes out in 8 frames. If this comes out in 8 frames and he blocks it, I will be -4. So my next stand 1 will come out in 12 frames, right? Or let's say I do like a down 3 or something. I'm -6. So if I do a stand 1, my next stand 1 will come out after my down 3 is -6, right? My stand 1 will come out in 14 frames. And that's literally how frame data works. It varies depending on if you block or you get hit. Now, the thing that's important to note is that there's a certain amount of frames where moves start to get unsafe. So we saw that Aaron Black's attack was, his stand 1 was 8 frames, right? So what if I do something like this right up close? Notice how in the bottom left corner it says I'm -17. So what that means is my next move will not come out until after 17 frames have passed. What that means is that Aaron Black will be able to press a button before me 17 frames before my next move comes out. And what that means also is that Aaron can punish me. Like, I cannot do any. After this, I'm done. I can't block because blocking takes a frame. I can't jump because jumping takes a frame. I can't move back. I can't do anything. Aaron gets a guaranteed punish here because I'm so minus. Now, certain moves aren't minus enough to where they're unsafe and they're considered safe. So for example, if Katana does this string, she's -4. What this means is my next move will come out in 12 frames, but what this also means is that if I block, Aaron Black cannot punish me because I'm -4. His fastest move is 6 frames. So he wouldn't be able to punish me because I'm only -4, right? Unless I pressed a button, because if I press a button, right, it'll become 12 frames. I'm -4 and I can block whatever he does next. That's basically the gist of frame data. Frame traps are just simply something like, if I hit Aaron Black, there's a thing called hit advantage. If you look at the bottom left corner, my hit advantage means I'm +2. That means my next move, well, actually, my next move will still come out in the same frames that it comes out in, but my opponent will be minus a certain amount of moves, or a certain amount of frames. So for example, like if this is +2, that means that Aaron's stand 1 will come out in 10 frames because I'm up 2 frames and he's down, well, he's down 2 frames, sorry. I'm not up 2 frames, he's down 2 frames. So basically what this means is, if I hit you with like a poke or something, I'm +15, right? That means he has to block, because if Aaron Black tries to press a button, he's gonna get punished, because any move that he does, his fastest move is 6 frames. So even if he does a 6-frame move, he'll still be down 9 frames, which means Katana can punish whatever he tries to do. So the only thing he can do there when he's -15 is block. Now, this is what people mean by you're mashing on hit, because if I hit you with something where you're so minus, like +15, me being +15, you being down 15, you not being able to react in 15 frames is just crazily beneficial for me, because basically what this means is, like, if you try to press any button, you're gonna get blown up. But unfortunately MK11 doesn't work perfectly like that. But that's kind of like the gist of it, is that, you know, if I hit you with something and you try to press a button, I'm up a certain amount of frames, right? Which means technically you shouldn't be able to press anything. But MK11 does this weird thing where, like, there's online issues. Certain moves aren't plus enough, like you saw Katana stand 1's only +2, so you can hold up on hit, which basically just means since jumping takes 1 frame, you could actually go up in the air before I could try to trap you with another attack, right? That's what frame trapping is. Because I'm only +2, which isn't that much. But if I'm like +15, you can't press a button. And this is kind of like, I'm kind of veering off a little bit, but this is kind of like the issue that MK11 has had since release. It's still kind of a problem. Is that, like, there's just moves just aren't plus enough, so people can kind of like hold up on hit, press buttons, even though like they've been hit. Because in traditional fighting game sense, usually you can't press buttons after you've been hit, right? Like if you block, it's different, because blocking generally means you'll get some sort of advantage back. But if you get hit by a move, it means you're down a certain amount of frames, usually in traditional fighting games. MK11 does this weird thing where players kind of get leeway because the developers wanted to cater to casuals. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm just being frank, that's pretty much what it was. Most fighting games, if I hit you with a move like a stand 1 or any button really, like if I just hit you with some sort of button, like you can see Katana stand 2 is like +13. This is only +4, which means you can press buttons. This is +14. Usually in the double digits is when you're so plus your opponent can't really do much, unless it knocks them back. If it knocks them back, then it's, you know, I can't really frame trap you here, right? Because I've knocked you so far back. But if I'm in your face and I hit you with a button and I'm like +15, your turn's over. In a traditional sense, because there's no button that can go double digits before I can press another button. Like if you do like a stand 1, which was 8 frames, I'm +15. So, you know, my next move will come out way before your stand 1 will come out. I'll be up, what? I can't do math. 7 frames. I'll be up 7 full frames before you can press a button. So, but that's the gist of frame data. I know it's really confusing. One of these days I'm gonna have to explain it a little bit better on stream, because I think it's kind of hard to explain in a video. But long story short, what frame trapping and plus frames mean. Plus frames just mean that if I hit you with something, if you look at the bottom left corner, katana's +2, here katana's +13. It just means I'm up a certain amount of frame advantage. Like you can't press a button fast enough to beat any other button that I do. That's what plus frames means. Frame traps just mean that you're trapped in that frame data. That's what it means. It means like if I hit you with something, if I hit you with like a down 3, you're trapped by 15 frames. Like, you know, if you press an 8 frame, you're going to still be down 7 frames before you can you can outpress a button that I press, pretty much. So, that's the gist of frame data. The easiest long and short of it to always think about is that when you play a fighting game, if you get hit, it's generally not your turn. In most fighting games, like MK11 is probably the only fighting game I can think of that I've ever played where you get to kind of steal your turn back if people can't frame trap you, because it's harder to frame trap in this game because of how gravity works. You can kind of hold up and like get clipped by things that would normally trap you. Another example is you can flawless block on hit. Normally when you're in hit stun, you can't press a button, you can only block. But in this game, for some reason, you can flawless block after you've been frame trapped. It's kind of weird, but that's for a whole nother day to talk about. Sorry if this made it even more confusing. I'll try as hard as I can to explain it again, or on during a stream, because I know it's like really complicated, but it really is not that difficult once you get it down. It's just math. It's literally just math. And MK is kind of weird where it doesn't really apply because of how the buttons work. There's a bunch of issues. It's not just the frame data is not high enough to cause frame traps, but it's also like certain moves are stubby, certain moves have hitbox issues, you can flawless block on hit, like gravity issues, stuff like that. But anyway, that's all I want to talk about. I'll see you guys later. Subscribe for more.